Elijah, just make sure everybody can hear in the chat. We hear. Thank you guys for waiting. We wanted to make sure our audio was fine. Can everybody hear me in the chat? Great. Want to make sure you can hear me great in the chat. What are they saying? They can hear me? All right. Thank you for everybody. Welcome to the Remnant. This is our weekly Wednesday night meetings at the Remnant. This is my wife, Dub, for you who don't know. This year we've been married 27 years. That's a lot. Dub, you like to say anything?
No. Welcome to our class, and I hope you enjoy it. All
right, babe. Let's go, because you guys are waiting. I think we're a little bit behind time, but let's go. This is our public remnant outreach. We give classes on 3 platforms: OnlyFans, IG, and YouTube. So if you want to join our classes, I suggest you might be joining the first when you get started, join the YouTube class right here on YouTube. It's twice a week. There's hundreds of classes in there on different topics. Anything you could ever think about. We talk about everything here. Nothing is taboo, okay? But the subject tonight is the dead God, right? I'm glad you came because I want to talk about what that means, right? But I want to take you a few places. And in the Remnant, we always say, bring your whole mind, right? Because I'm going to challenge your thought processes. This is not a ministry. This is an operation. This is not religion. This is culture, all right? But I kind of want to take you down a road of how I got to where I'm at today, right? But I want to make a statement first. I want to trigger a thought in your mind. Out of all the things that's being said and have been said for maybe the past 30 years, religious stuff that has been said for the past 30, 40 years, I want to ask a question. Do you think that out of all the things that's been said, now bring your whole mind, do you think out of all the things that have been said through the years, when you go to church, the mosque, or wherever you go, do you think that of all the things that have been said, given the amount of years they've been said, that anything is going to change based upon all that has already been said? For the many of years that you could reflect, some of you are older than others. But I'm asking, do you think out of all the things that have already been said, some of the greatest messages, some of the greatest orators we've had, do you think that anything that has been said is going to change the conditions that we continue to find ourselves in? Right? That's the thought. Because if it's not going to change, and if it hasn't changed the conditions, then we got a problem. Right? Somebody said, what is that old saying where they say the definition of crazy is repeating the same thing over and over, hoping for new results, right? So we have repeated a dialogue and a language over and over again for some 40 years, expecting something to shift. And when we look into our communities, nothing has shifted, right? So whatever's being said in the churches today have not shifted anything. As a matter of fact, we've lost generations of young people. Nothing has changed, right? So how are you going to be encouraged by going to do the same thing over and over again, hoping for a different result? She can't keep running back and forth like that, honey. My daughter, every time I come up here, this girl be running track. And I tell her, Mom, don't be letting her go back and forth. But let her go that way or something. Don't let her keep running back and forth. Anyway, so we got an issue and we got a problem. So I want to challenge that by saying, unless a new see, I'll check people right there, wife and all. I just told her not to let my little daughter go back and forth like, this is real. Real right now, right? Honey, don't let her run back and forth like that. So anyway, I bet your pastor won't do that. This is real life, right? So anyway, unless there's something interjected, nothing has the capacity to change the trajectory of what's been going on and getting worse, right? We've heard all that could be said about Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha. We've heard the same thing being said, right? We're not mad at anybody, right? I'm going to challenge you because the title is The Dead God. And why am I referencing the dead God? Because to me, if you are doing something in relation to the God that you believe and nothing has shifted and changed over long periods of time, I could only come to the conclusion that your God is dead. Oh, I'm about to talk to you tonight. Right? You might not come to that conclusion because there might not be a lot that you want because you've been marginalized and reduced to be at the bottom, to think at the bottom, to have low expectations of self, right? So you have a condition, right, where you are satisfied with the crumbs. And I'm not just necessarily talking about money. I'm not necessarily talking about money, right? Because the church have claimed this mighty God, and I believe the Most High is real, and we're going to get to that, but let me go and unpack this. This mighty God that can do anything. Are you impressed? Are you impressed with the message that you've been hearing because you haven't seen the demonstration of a mighty God in our communities? Are you impressed? Oh, but because you're so watered down, right? You so watered down that this is where you're at. Oh, I just thank Jesus that he helped me change my tire. I just thank the Lord because, I don't know what I would have done, and that's okay. Do you understand? But to relate what has been told you and to reduce and almost, let me say this, give your God an excuse not to be everything that he claims to be. To give the God that you say is mighty, but in your communities, is he mighty? In your personal life, has he been mighty? Oh, the Lord has just been good to me. I just thank the Lord that I just got something to eat today. Has he been mighty? And what is it about you that you have accepted a God that has not produced who he said he was? Would you accept a man like that? Would you accept a boss like that? When you get on the job, the boss says, I'm going to give you $55,000 a year. And you're excited, right? But when you start getting your checks, it's not adding up to what the $55,000 will be towards the end of the year. As a matter of fact, it's half. It's half, right? Do you have an expectation of when he tells you who he is, what he can produce? Why isn't it that you don't have an expectation of the idea of what God has been sold to you? because the God you've been serving is dead. Let me tell you something. I was 16 years old. And I just got into the church. My best friend, Andre Witherspoon, had gave his life to the Lord, and he came and talked to me, and we always argue about everything, right? Testosterone, ego between Andre and I, right? So at the end of the argument, he said, Dre, I'm just not going to argue with you no more. Just on your own time, just see for yourself. So I went to church with him and gave my life to the Lord. Yeah, 16, right? And I started reading, and what I was reading did not match what I was seeing around me. It didn't match because I was reading about great stories about Daniel. Now bring your whole mind because I want to lay a foundation before I turn a couple corners on you, right? Because we're talking about the dead God today. And I'm not scared to bring you this truth because that's what you need, right? So I started reading and studying about these magnificent characters, especially Daniel caught my attention, right? And I was reading about the conditions that Daniel was in and how this great God came and delivered him, right? And I was like, see, this is what I need. I need to see a God like this, right? He was faced with being put in the lion's den. He had to rise up against the king of his time. And there were people that were jealous of him because of his position and because he was a foreigner. But because the man got up and prayed 3 times a day before his God, and even when he was threatened with being put in the lion's den, he never let that alter his commitment to his prayer. And so I was thinking, well, wow, let me try this. I was 16. Let me try this because I'm trying to study to see how I can make this God be big like that to me. So what I did at 16, I started praying 3 times a day, an hour each time. And then I started fasting because I started reading about fasting. And so I would fast, full fast, no water, no food for 2 days. Sunday and Monday was my fast day, right? And I started seeking God and reading the Bible and reading it and devouring it. I was 16. And one day I had an appearance. Somebody said, what is an appearance? Is it like a dream? It's kind of like a dream. But it's not like a dream in that God appeared to me in the dream and spoke to me. And I know that might seem kind of crazy to a lot of people today, but if you read throughout what Christians call the Bible, we call our history book, right? If you read throughout our history book, you will see that this is not something that is uncommon within the culture. That the Most High have appeared to many in dreams. He appeared to Solomon in a dream and asked Solomon, listen, what is it that you want? The scripture says he appeared to Solomon in a dream. He appeared to Abraham in a dream. God appears in dream culturally. This is not something exotic, which means rare. This happens. And it happened to me. I was 16 years old, and I'm going to share with you what he told me. He said, I'll be the only one on your right hand. Everyone else will be on your left. Now, when I woke up, I didn't really understand the significance until later, right? And that began the beginning of God appearing to me in dreams, right? One time he appeared to me and he said to me, I have sprinkled you in my salt, but I will surely bring you out, for everyone must be sprinkled in my salt. Right? And every time I would have a dream, I would write it down. But this one was really peculiar to me. I did not understand. What do you mean you sprinkle? What the heck? I don't understand what that means. There was a lady at the time named Dolores Kendrick who was very influential in my life. And I went and talked to Dolores and told her about this dream, this appearance that I had. And she said, I know that was God that spoke to you. I want you to go read Ezekiel 16, where it talks about no one salted you, no one washed you, when he's talking about God reclaiming his people and how he began to prepare them and develop them when nobody else would, right? And then I took it on myself to start reading the Levitical law about salt because I needed to understand, what do you mean you have sprinkled me in your salt? but you will surely bring me out, but everyone must be sprinkled in your salt. I didn't have any point of reference to this kind of language, but there was the beginning of him teaching me his own language and his own character. Right? So as I begin to read the Levitical law, I start recognizing that salt had to do with sacrifice, and that everything that was salted in the Levitical law, everything needed to be salted before it was offered to God, before God could accept it, before it smelled good to God. Right? The grain needed to be salted. The meat was salted because it got the impurities out. It preserved it. It made the meat wholesome. Right? And so I started understanding a little bit more when he was saying that I've sprinkled you in my salt, but I will surely bring you out. He was like, listen, there's some things about you in your life, how you believe, how you understand me, that is against me. And there's a process I have to bring you through to dig certain indoctrinations out of you. And this is what's called the salting process, in which I will allow life to begin to purge things out of you. In other words, I'm going to allow you to walk with me. I'm about to start teaching you about me for real. Not what you learn to church, not what you learn to Christianity, not what you learn in the mosque, but I'm about to start teaching you myself. Right? And I'm going to use life itself as the salt. Do you understand what I'm saying? So in the beginning, I never understood all this. So I'm referencing what I know now and taking you back to then. Right? So I'm in this salting process. And I'm going through a whole bunch of things because at the time, it was around when drugs had infiltrated the country. Right? And there was a lot of people in my family that was strung out on drugs. Right? Even my father, my dear father, who had never touched a drug until he was 40 years old, he, the man that I admired more than anybody, he had got strung out on drugs. Right? It was a time that my mother had moved to Flint, Michigan with her husband, Jake Phillips. And my mother had asked me, what are you going to do? I said, don't worry about me because God's going to take care of me. Right? Because I remember reading a psalm and it says, when your mother and your father forsake you, then the Lord will take you up. So my mother had left and she had took my younger brother and they went to Flint, Michigan. And they left me in the apartment by myself with just nothing. I had a friend named Beta who would come over and she would give me food. And she said, listen, I think maybe you need to call the pastor and let her know your condition. I said, okay, I'll call the pastor. So I called Pastor Bernacow. I was going to a church called the Seed of Abraham, right? And she said, you need to go and stay with one of the elders. He got an open bedroom for you. So I went and stayed with Elder Bass for a little while, right? And then after I stayed with Elder Bass a little while, I went to work. And I went to work at Hasbro Toys, and I met a friend named Sam, and he had just got out the military, and we just was gelling together like, man, on some real spiritual things. And Sam had an apartment. And Sam said, man, you can come kick it. Don't even trip. So I said, cool, man. So I went and kicked it at Sam's house. Then Sam lost his job. I'm speeding up the story just to kind of give you the understanding of the salt. And when Sam lost his job, we had to get out of his apartment. And we went to the shelter. And so I went to the shelter, and you had to be there at a certain time before the shelter closes. And you can be there until the morning. And they give you a little snack lunch or something like that. And then you leave in the morning. You might be able to take a shower. But so I was in the shelter. Right? And one day I was down by a popular location in Seattle, Washington called the Pike Place Market. And I heard somebody screaming. And it got my attention. And I looked around and I seen this guy that was so far down the road. And he kept screaming. And I couldn't understand what he was saying. But he was getting closer to the Pike Place Market. So as he was getting closer, I could hear what he was saying. And he was saying this over and over again. He says, I'd rather go the way of a bear. He was quoting the scripture, robbed of her whelps than go the way of a fool. I'd rather go the way of a bear, robbed of her whelps, than go the way of a fool. He just sat screaming it. And then I just sat and I watched him. And he got close to me, close enough where I could say something to him. And when he said that, I said to him, all a fool needs is love, just like everybody else. And when I said that to him, he stopped and he turned to me and he began to talk to me. And when he began to talk to me, he began to share with me things that only I knew, that only I had prayed to God about. And I was scared and stunned at the same time, right? And he kept saying that, ask me. That's what he kept saying to me, ask me. Because I wanted to ask him, how do you know all this? Right? He said, ask me. And I couldn't. Right? And he just said, what I have was given to me to give to you. And I've waited to give it to you. He said to me, you are God's salesman. He said, you can't go no lower than where you are right now. He says, you know what? This is what he told me. He said, Moses brought the law. This is what he told me. He said, but you will bring God's love. He says, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be real hard. He says, and one day you're going to tell this story to a lot of people. He said, and no matter where you are, one day I'm going to look you up again. And I was just stunned. And I got the confidence to ask him. I was like, what is your name? He was a black man, older. And he said, my name is James. And I left and he left. The scripture says, be mindful how you entertain strangers, for many have entertained angels unaware. This is something that is extremely normal in the culture. In the Israelite culture, this is normal, right? Not in the religious culture. In the religious culture, they'll make you feel like these normal things that are in our culture are like, oh, mysterious. No, they're extremely normal. See, but when you have only a religious lens, let me tell you this. So Gentiles have created Jesus as a religion. And a Christian asked me one time, he says, do you believe in Jesus? I said, it's almost insulting you asking me that question. Of course I believe in Jesus. What do you mean? But I believe in Moses, and I believe in Elijah, and I believe in Samuel, and I believe in David, and I begin to talk about all the ancestors, right? And I said, you can't separate Jesus from the thousands of years in the making. I said, it was Moses that even introduced us to who we would look for. Because Moses said, another prophet will arise like unto me, and you will hear him. So what Christianity did, it is just isolated Jesus. But culture doesn't allow you to do that. You see, I teach the remnant. It's so dangerous, especially for minority and black people. It's so dangerous, Christianity has done, to just make this religion around Jesus, because it disconnects you from the culture. And the culture is the thing that gives you the weight. When you don't know your identity and you think you are a Gentile, right? Then all your focus will be Jesus, and you'll have no weight of culture, no historic connection to anything, nothing weighty. I always tell the remnant, we are thousands of years in the making, right? It just didn't happen with Jesus. Jesus is a part of the culture coming from Abraham all the way up to Jesus. The whole culture is ours. And of course, we were separated for a while because of our ancestors' disobedience, right? But that's one of the most dangerous things for a people who don't know who they are. because they have no weight. But you could see other cultures, right, that maintain a sense of weight, a sense of heaviness, right? Because they could trace their ancestry back 500 years and so on and so on. And that brings a weight. And you, as a so-called African American, you don't have that weight, right? You have Jesus, who they've created as a religion. And Jesus came within culture. Within culture. How dare you try to separate him from the culture? All praises to the Most High God. Okay, so going on, because we're talking about the dead God. I remember being in prison. No, it was jail. I was in Clark County Detention Center. A lot of you remembered me from American Pimp when I was in jail and I was facing, what was it? My first charges was transporting a person across state lines, living out the earnings of a prostitute, right? And I was facing these charges. And when I was in jail, because Christianity taught me how bad a person I was, Christianity taught me that I was a Gentile without God in the world. But when I was in jail, I had reflected on the many instances that the Most High was with me. And so it confused me. So I was praying and I said, God, I don't understand. How could you be with me? How could you show yourself so real to me? How could you manifest and appear to me and talk to me the way you have if I'm so out of bounds, if I'm such a sinner? Because the church tells me that God don't hear the prayers of sinners. But yet you've been appearing to me since I was 16 years old. I don't understand, God. And then God gave me a dream that night. I put it in my book, The Road to Paradise, but in the dream, he was showing me this man who was the most hated man in the earth. The reason why he was the most hated man in the earth, because the way in which he would kill people, and he would kill families and children, right? And when he would kill people in the dream, he would find the tallest building and he would place their bodies in like a demonic circle or something, right? So that the news cameras and the helicopters would be able to film it and the whole world would see how gross and disgusting and awful this site was. And in the dream, the police had got a tip about where this man was, the most hated man upon the face of the earth. And I'm seeing this all in the dream, and they got a tip. And he was in this car, and the police began to follow him in this car. And he's driving and woo, and he got a little distance above the police, and he jumped out the car, and there was an apartment building. And he ran, and I'm seeing all this in the dream, and my heart is racing. And he ran into the apartment complex, and it was like 3 levels. And when he went to the apartment complex, he started trying to open the doors, every door. He was going to every door to try to get in to see what door was open. And my heart was racing in the dream, like, oh my God, this killer, this crazy man, he's gonna go into somebody's house and he's gonna kill some people. And he's going up, then he goes downstairs and he goes down to the 3rd level downstairs, and he finds a door that's open. And he goes in, and there's a family. He had about 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and a family was in there. And I was devastated in the dream. And he didn't hurt them. And all the police, it was like hundreds of police there. They were just surrounding this whole building. And they were going door to door themselves, trying to find out where this man was, the most hated man upon the face of the earth. Right? And so they finally get to the door that was open. And the man comes out and offers no resistance. And so they got him, they handcuff him, and they're walking him up the stairs. It's 3 levels because he went down to the bottom level of the apartment complex, right? So as he's getting up to the main level, right, where the parking lot was, and the parking lot was in front of the apartment complex, there was hundreds of police officers. There was news cameras. There was the news there. There were police officers that had their guns drawn out of their cars. It was SWAT. It was everything. And when they was walking him up the stairs, a police officer from behind him tripped him and kicked him so that he could stumble as if he was running. And that's what he did. He kicked him and stumbled, and he yelled out, "He's trying to get away!" And all the polices in that whole parking lot just started firing. And guess what? God stepped in. This is in my dream. God stepped in and allowed none of those bullets to hit him or harm him. And this was all telecast all over the world. And the whole world seen a miracle, and everybody was tripping. Right? And God had saved this man. And because it was such a great miracle, people wanted to talk to him. They had seen something they had never seen before. That's not the gist of it. In the dream, God spoke to me in the dream. And this is what he told me. He said, let me say this part because I need to mention this. In the dream, I realized that God loved the man. And it was something that was foreign to me because I couldn't understand how you could love a man that was so evil. But in the dream, it was shown to me that God loved him, and I couldn't understand this love. It was something beyond me. I couldn't understand it. Right? So at the end, God spoke to me and he said, if I loved him, the most hated man in the world, how much more do you think I love you? And I woke up crying in my dream. I woke up crying, bawling, right? And what I'm saying to you is that at every time that God appeared to me, it transitioned me and it taught me something different about him that I didn't learn through church, right? And then what I was realizing years later, you were with me in the game. I was supposed to be the worst person in the earth. You were with me. My mom was a prostitute. My dad was a pimp, but you chose me and you was with me, right? And I'm going through life feeling like the bad guy at times, but I couldn't shake the appearances that he came to me, that he had spoken to me, and that I was in that salting process because I began to understand what the salting was all about, that it was cultivating something in me through what I was going through in life. And you know what I realized? I realized that I myself had to walk through those pathways so that I can identify with the kind of love that he had for me, so that I can mimic that love to his people. That's powerful. I went through all those different scenarios in life, in the condition that I was in. And of course, he brought me up out of all of it. But I personally went through it so that I could mimic the love he had for me towards his people. That's why in the remnant, I don't expect anybody to come ready-made. I don't care if you're selling drugs, if you're pimping, if you're a gangbanger, if you're a hustler. I don't care where you're at in your life right now. And the only reason why I could have the depth to say it to you is because he was with me in the gutter. And the church will teach you that he won't be with you there, because God don't hear the sins, the prayers of sinners, right? And they'll have you ostracized forever. And you will take on the characteristic of the bad guy. And because since you're the bad guy, you might as well be the bad guy. That's why our people out there are doing as much as they can in hedonism, in evil, because they've accepted what the country has taught them, what Christianity has taught them, that they're simply the bad guy. So since that's what I am, I'm going to be the bad guy. But let me explain something to you. That's what they tried to make me feel that I was, but the Most High said to me, not so. I have sprinkled you in my salt, but I will surely bring you out, for everyone must be sprinkled in my salt. Because when the message comes, it has to be perfect. It has to be specific. It has to be organic to the people that it's trying to reach. When the message comes, like I said earlier, do you think all that has been said all these years is going to change anything for tomorrow? What is it that you could have hope in when you have decades of the same conversations, the same language, the same people talking about Jesus, this, that, and the other, yet it has not changed the condition of our people, because that's been a dead God you've been serving. And the Most High is alive, but he wants you to know he knew exactly where you were going to be, just like he knew exactly where I was going to be. If you read in our history book, he said, I've chosen the weak things of this world to confound the strong, things that are despised, right? He's talking about me. He's talking about many of you. And it don't really matter to me what people think. Because one thing that I learned from this salting process is it come with receipts. That's what I've learned. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you don't, I'm about to explain it to you. It come with receipts. See, because a lot of people out there been talking, been preaching to you. There's a lot of talkheads out there that's talking right now. And I have challenged them for many years saying, listen, if your philosophy, your idea haven't changed your neighborhood, hasn't changed your community, hasn't changed your city, hasn't changed your state, well, what are you out here talking to our people for without presenting the evidence that your information is valid enough to oppose and overcome our greatest enemy, which is white supremacy? Because all that fancy conversation and talk, it ceases when the white man come in the room, because you're neutralized. Churches and all. I said it come with receipts, right? So all the things that I was going through, when I was in prison, I was facing a life sentence. I ain't did nothing that reserved, that desire, that should be a life sentence. But I was facing that. You guys seen it in American Pimp. That's one thing that the Most High wanted to make sure of, that everything that I'm talking about could be traced. So that you out there that have never seen the mighty God, the awesome God, the miracle working God, could trace the footsteps and trace the conversations and be able to confirm all the things that I'm saying, so that you can see them for the first time. So that you can see them for the first time. And then you got something to hope in for real. Right? So I was facing a life sentence. But the Most High had spoken to me. Once again, he had appeared to me and he had told me, and all these things that I'm telling you are chronicled in my book, The Road to Paradise. Right? And before I get into that, when I was in prison, I was in North Las Vegas holding. It was federal holding. It was 1999. I had an appearance again. In the appearance, this is what God said to me, and I put this in my book. He said, at 20 years from now, at Christmas time, I will cause a star to fall from heaven unto the waters on the earth. He said, there will be fire everywhere. He said, men will desire to flee from the fire on the land to the water. But the fire in the water will be hotter than the fire on land. Right? So that was 1999. So he says in 20 years from now at Christmas time, that would have made it 2019 Christmas time. Right? So all up until that time, I'd always been wondering what God meant by that. I will cause a star to fall from heaven unto the waters on the earth. There will be fire everywhere. I didn't know. Was it something literal he was sharing with me? I never could understand. I would even look stuff up. One time I looked up this because I would look online to see if anybody else had any seemed like this. So I looked online one time, and it was this one guy who had wrote this book that was a new book called 2019, The Judgment. And he was a mathematician, and he had said something was going to happen like I said it. Well, I wrote this guy, and I told him, I said, yes, listen, you're on it, because my book was written before his came out, right? So I said, you're on it, but that's not your reasoning by why this is going to happen is not the reason. So I wrote him. I never heard from him. I never heard back from him, but I did write him. But I always was wondering what this was going to be. And I didn't understand, but I did understand one thing. I understood that whatever is going to happen is that the Most High said it will be everywhere. That it will be everywhere, right? So when I published my book in 2014, after I got out of prison, I put this appearance in the book. And you know, I'm telling my wife, people probably gonna think I'm crazy because I put this in the book about this major event that's supposed to happen in 2019. And I put it in the book in 2004. My book was published in June 2005, right? I said, I don't care because I know God appeared to me and I know what he told me. So all these years I was waiting, and Dove and I was waiting. So here come 2019 Christmas time. What happened? That was everywhere. COVID happened. And COVID was the fire that was everywhere, the judgment. And I always said, what they gonna say? What are you gonna say when all the years I put that appearance and prophesied about this great event, gave you the specifics of when it was going to happen in 2019, Christmas time, this event that's going to be everywhere is going to happen. And I would always say, what are you going to say? How are you going to deny that? How are you going to deny it? And people that read my book after it happened, they got in contact with me. So many people, man, you talked about this. You said that. Yeah, because I serve the God that's alive. And I got expectations of the God that's alive. It's not good enough for me to be walking around here talking about he helped me change my tire, seeing the conditions of my people, seeing the lawlessness of the country, and nothing can happen, but you serve a mighty God. Where? Where is he at? And you're satisfied with that. You serve a dead God. They killed my little brother, Shay Taylor, in 2016. Now, at this time, I'm full of the appearance of God inside of me. At this time, God done dug me up out of every pit that I've been in. And they killed my little brother, and I was in LA, and I came to Seattle, Washington. And I said, God, I'm about to make everybody pay. See, because I know I serve the God that answers by fire. So I came up here, and they laughed at me. What is he going to do? This ex-felon, this guy who used to be a pimp was in the game. What is he going to do? But they didn't know the appearances lived inside of me. They didn't know. What is he going to do? When I came up here, all the black communities and the black, all the black organizations, they just shunned me. What is he going to do? Right? But I sat down there and I talked to Kathleen O'Toole, who was the chief of police, and my family went up there, and I told her, I said, listen, I know that I can't bring my little brother back, but I'm still willing to work with you so that we can prevent the incidents of violence in the community. And I did that on purpose. Because what I realized through the Spirit of the Most High is that the reason why we've been so defeated outside of you having a God that's dead is that we are the most reactionary people in the world. Because you come up out of that slavery the need to prove yourself, the need to be validated. I need to prove, I need to be validated. And so you go before the oppressor, asking the oppressor, why does he continue to do all the things? Give me a napkin over there, nephew. Is there a napkin over there? Cassie? Why does he continue to do all the things that he does to you? Right? That victim's mentality. I said to her on purpose. Thank you. I said to her on purpose that I know that I can't bring my little brother back, but I'm still willing to work with you so that we can reduce the incidences of violence, because I didn't come before her like the victim that she's used to. I came as the conqueror that the Most High sent me to be. And I spoke to her like the conqueror I am. I know that I can't do nothing about that situation, but we can do something about this one. That's leadership. And people was wondering, how could you do it when they killed your brother? Because I come here to lead. Because I come here to lead, and I serve a God that's alive. And I already knew that she would have to engage me. She couldn't just gaff me off. If I was a person that only came with a reaction, she could gaff that off. Oh, they're angry, they're mad, they're going down there burning up stuff, this, that. They're used to that reaction from victims. That's what victims do. They react. Conquerors respond. And so I responded like the conqueror I am. And I made her have to engage me, because her own community would wear her out if she didn't, because they would say that you guys killed this man's brother, and this man said to you he's willing to work with you to reduce the incidences of violence, and you're not building with him. I had her where I wanted her to be. That's what I did. Listen, you can't be a victim and a conqueror. They can't maintain the same space. But God, through that salting, taught me what conquering is. He taught me through that long period of that salting who he was, right? And who he had made me to be. And it was time for me to show up to the world, right? So while everybody didn't give me a chance, a long story short, it was me and my leadership that brought every single community together in this state. Because one thing for certain is that the country is an empire that conquers lands and people. That's what empires do. That's what they've been doing throughout history, conquering lands and people. That's what they do. That's why you can't go to them asking them why they did this to you. Why? Because they got into the position doing it to you. That's why, because they got into the position doing it to you. You understand me? So conquerors respect power. And there's a word that is used in campaigning called building power, right? That is not a word that's used in our communities. So I had to build power, since that's what they respect. What do you mean by that, Dre? I went to every community, the white community, the Latino community, the Asian Pacific Islander community, the Samoan community, the Latino community. And I said to them, I said, listen, they've been beating us by ourselves. But if you join me, we could beat them. And all those communities joined my leadership. And so when we went before the law enforcement, we didn't go asking them why you killed our relatives, why you killed our babies. We went demanding and telling them what we want done, because you can beat us individually, but you can't beat everybody. That's building power. And what I did is I took the voices of every community that had faced the same thing that our family had faced. So we put a white family up front, and their voice was saying the same thing that the Latino family was saying. And the Latino family was saying the same thing that the Asian Pacific Islander family was saying. You killed our loved ones unjustly. And on and on. And every community was saying the same thing that our family was saying. Because I was telling the country that it's not a black problem, that it's an American problem. And it wasn't marginalized. We made it huge and big. And what happened is that each one of those communities, they didn't come fighting for black people. because I made them understand they didn't escape this problem. They came fighting for their people. And so every community coming fighting for their people. And we won, long story short. We became the first state with a police accountability law. And underneath my leadership, we submitted everybody in this state. I could talk about it because you could look it up. What did we do? We changed state law. And to this day, we lead the whole nation in police accountability. I've been interviewed before, I've said this, by the New Yorker, by all these news organizations. The President of the United States, Trump, he called me once. I've been on Fox News. I'm not saying it because it's impressive to me, but it's impressive to you. I'm only impressed with the appearance of God. All the rest is nothing to me. That's what impresses me. You understand? But I needed to share those things with you because I just don't want to be talking like your churches is talking, like the mosques is talking, but you got no receipts, right? You don't see the God of miracles, right? It was that same miracle working God that when I was facing life in prison and the Most High had appeared to me and he said to me, listen, Andre, you don't have to run anymore. You don't have to run anymore. He said it to me in a dream. So that let me know I'm going to go to trial against these people. And you don't take the feds to trial. You don't take the feds to trial. Everybody knows that. And everybody in my dorm was like, man, don't take the people to trial. But the Most High had already spoke to me. It didn't matter what anybody else thought. I knew that I would have the receipts. And so I took them to trial. And you can look it up. I was found guilty 7 times. Yes, I was. And when I was found guilty 7 times, my wife looked over at me. I think this is in the Review Journal or the Las Vegas Sun, because a reporter was there after I was found guilty. They saw what I said to my wife. The reporter wrote, he looked over to his wife and pointed upwards and mouthed the words, no matter what, believe in him. You see, I'd had an appearance from God. And I needed my wife to know that no matter what they said, it was what God had given me that mattered most. So a month later, I came back for sentencing. You can go look it up. And Howard McGibbon, federal judge, said, I can't sentence Mr. Taylor today because I have a problem with 4 of these charges. I didn't even know that the federal judge had the power to overturn the verdict of a jury. I didn't even know. No other judge could do it. Not a superior court judge, but a federal judge can. And so he told my attorney, Michael Kennedy, to write a motion about these charges that he had a problem with. You see, I serve the God who is alive and real. And it didn't matter what they tried to do or what they said to me, because they didn't know I had an appearance from God. And that one appearance from God is bigger than any word anybody in the world could ever say. And there's nothing you could do about it. So when I talk to the remnant, it's about the receipts. This is where I came from. Wherever you are, I'm no different from you. Get up, young man. Let me give you the information that he gave me. Let me love you with the love that he loved me. How can I do it? Because I've had to go through it myself. Now I could mimic what it looks like. And I could reach out to my people in any community and I could tell them, you are not a Gentile. You are the true blood descendants of Abraham, the ones that it is spoken about. When he told Abraham in Genesis 15:13, your descendants will be taken into a foreign country that's not their own and be enslaved there for 400 years. He was talking about you. But the church has sold you. You're just a Gentile in the world without God. In Deuteronomy 68, 28, 68, He says that they will be taken into slavery with ships. There's not a people that has been taken into slavery with ships but you. And then it says in Barak, what is it? Barak what? What is our favorite scripture? Barak 2, Barak 5. Get it up real quick for me. But anyway, he'll get it for me. In Barak 2:30, it says, in the land of your captivity, you will remember yourselves. Why was it necessary for God to come with the appearance to me? Because it takes something that shifts the condition and the way things have been. It wouldn't be good enough just for me to stand before you without any receipts. I would have to have something that indicates that God is real, that he was mighty. And I had to go through circumstances that relate to your circumstances in your life, because the message is catered to the people that it was sent to. So I had to be in certain conditions to feel the love of God, to understand the ability to dig me up out of the gutter, to understand how really powerful he is, and not just talk about it, but have the evidence. So in the streets, he was there. When they killed my brother, he was there. He's been there all alone. And he taught me so that I can come tell you and I could teach you. But I'm only here for the remnant. We're not out there in the corner twisting your arm to come be a part of what we're doing. That's not remnant. No, everybody's here by value. They value being here, right? And we reach young men from all over this world, from South Africa, from Europe, from everywhere. They've come to our conferences. Because the Most High said, I will scatter your people through the four corners of the earth, and then I will gather you. See, I can talk prophetically because the evidence and the receipts of my life is something unlike you're used to hearing, because all you hearing is that Jesus could fix it. Well, let me tell you something. The Most High told me that Jesus is not in control. He's real, Yahweh Shai, but he's not in control. The Holy Ghost is in control of this dispensation, not Jesus. He's played his role. He's done what he's supposed to do. This is a time of the Holy Ghost. And that might be foreign to a lot of you out there hearing, because you've heard it rehearsed in churches for so long, and it never was anything significant to you. It never meant anything. It was never heavy. It never penetrated anything to you, because you were disconnected from the thousands of years in the making. Because it wasn't a history book for you to go back and look at. Because you looked at everything from a religious perspective instead of being from a culture perspective. So there's certain things you could never see. You could never hear. I always say this, just to let you know. I say this often. I am very, very aware of the power of this country. I'm aware of what this country has done during COINTELPRO. I'm aware that they have neutralized great leaders, great organizations, the Black Panthers. Even during COINTELPRO, they said 40% of the members of the nation was informants. They have neutralized. They have utilized their power and been able to do everything they want to do, because there was no word in the earth. See, when anything shifts, the word has to be sent. And when the word is sent, there's nothing that can oppose it. One thing I could tell you, for you out there looking or listening, the reason why I'm not an individual that the system really has to worry about, because I'm an individual who believes that I won't move until the Most High moves. I won't go pick up a weapon. I won't tell my people to go get guns, and all that is beneath my God. I'm totally against it, right? Because that is not going to make this country be broken. That won't do it. They're used to weaponry. I don't feel I have to use the weapons of man to make them heal. I didn't do it with police accountability, and nobody else in the country have done what I've done, even though my mama was a hoe and my daddy was a pimp, and I was supposed to be, as far as the church was concerned, the scum of the earth, but God used me. And he continues to do it to this day, and there's nothing nobody can do about it, right? So using what somebody might feel is the way to combat the system, we have seen throughout the years that they've been neutralized. That is not what I believe in. I don't have to believe in it because I got the power of God. And it's too late for anybody to do anything. See, once the word has been delivered, that means it's settled. There's really nothing that you could do. You're going to see everything that I say out of my mouth manifest. Let me give you a few things that God gave me. Somebody says, if God has spoken to you, you should know. There should be some things that you know. Well, I got the information. Just get in my classes. You could see all the things that we talk about, right? But I've shared this with my classes, and this is something that he hasn't revealed to me the fullness of it, but I want to share it with you. First of all, he told me that there was another world behind our galaxy where there's an advanced people that live there. Somebody says, now you lost me. Well, I always say to the remnant, you can't tell me you believe that God exists and you've never seen him before and don't believe that anything outside of humans exists. If you can stretch that far to believe in the existence of God, what you might consider an alien or another race of people somewhere in the universe should be easy to think exists. If you could truly believe in angels, you might interpret an angel as an alien, right? If you could believe in the existence of God, then everything's a go. Then everything's a go. Do you understand? If you could believe in the existence of God, everything's a go, right? So I'm saying that he said to me, there's another world behind our galaxy. And then he told me something that was really peculiar that I still don't understand to this day. And I'm just sharing it openly because maybe somebody else maybe have the other end of it. He said that this is the word he used. He gave me this word. He said there are 9 NAPO pointers. That's what he called it. NAPO pointers in the brain. There are 9 NAPO pointers. That's the word he gave me. NAPO pointers in the brain. That was years ago that he shared that with me. I think I was in Houston. I don't know what it means. I'm sure that eventually he will share it with me, but I'm sharing it with you. Just certain things like that, are out there and I don't even understand it yet. Do you understand? But I know that as I continue to move forward in this walk with the Most High, more will be revealed. But I'm here today to let you understand how I came with the information that I have, where he brought me from, what I learned from every condition and every situation that I found myself in, what I learned from it, so that I can come share with you the God that is alive. So that when I impart the information, you can expect what Christians have been telling you for 40 years, the mighty God. You'll see it in your life. You'll expect it in your life. But there is an accountability that he has for you. There's something that he wants from you. What does he want from you? What is it that this God that you are talking about, Andre, does he want from me? He wants obedience and submission. That's it. There is nothing more that you could offer the Most High than obedience and submission. And I said this often, and when you go through the classes, you'll hear that theme ring constantly, obedience and submission. And that's what I learned. One time I had a dream, and the Lord spoke to me in a dream. I was 16 years old. I was going to a church called the Seed of Abraham, right? And in the church, in the dream, I was naked, right? Which means shame, embarrassment, humiliation. I was naked in the church, and all the church people could see me. And I ran to the bathroom to get cover. But I felt the presence of God following me. And so I could feel outside of the bathroom door that the presence of God was there. And in the dream, I yelled to God, God, why you let all this happen to me? And then I heard the voice of the Lord in the dream. He said, to humble you. And then I just woke up terrified because I realized that salting was happening. And the salting was to bring me to my end, to make me understand him, to break the yoke of indoctrination and socialization that I have been taught through the idea of Christianity that is a religion. And he wanted to start teaching me about culture, where it was grounded in me. And he was saying, I'm going to take you through this process and you're going to walk with me. And I'm going to teach you. And I'm going to give you the information. Right? He took me through things. He took me to the game. You might think it as something as evil. It's not something, it's wrong. But he allowed me to get some truths and to learn some things from the vices of the life that I'm able to impart even now. So when in the remnant, we talk about every subject. We talk about manhood. We talk about relationships, and we talk about women. Well, he allowed me to go through a lifestyle to gain a certain type of information and knowledge that I'm able to impart to men and women, right? Because I've lived through some things and I've observed some things. So now when I'm talking about manhood and I'm sharing some of the dispositions that you need as a man that attracts a woman is because I had to walk through that salting to get the information. Right? And when I say that, one of the biggest things is honesty. I learned that through being in the lifestyle. Do you understand? So there were things that I had learned and been able to take from. Somebody might be out there saying, God wouldn't do that. Well, why would God say, I have taken the things that are despised, the things that are low, to confound the things that are high, if he didn't know that we would be despised and low? See, because the Most High prophesied about the condition, you don't think he had the antidote? So me coming through these conditions, the message is tailor-made for the people, our people that are in the condition. That's why what I say could reach them and might not reach the affluent. It will, but it is tailor-made for those that are what he said, the despised, the low, the forsaken, those ones. Because he said that's the condition that we would be in, right? But in the country, your positioning makes you a victim because you don't understand the culture. So you don't have any empowerment by knowing, listen, I'm where he said we were going to be. So I know if he has said we would be there, and that was the prophecy, there has to be an antidote. All praises. There has to be an antidote, right? And the information is the antidote. I didn't realize that I had been on this long. So from the beginning, I said the dead God. I told Dove I wanted to give a little testimony today of how I got to where I've got to, right? Because I wanted you to wake up and stop accepting the dead God in your life. Because you have been. You have no expectations of him. And whatever expectations you have, you don't see. Because it's just like, this is where you've reduced this, what you idea of God is, right? You've reduced him to things that people in the world don't even think twice about. They don't even think twice about. So they never, ever have to attribute anything to God when God's Christian people are attributing the littlest things that is something that they don't even concern themselves with. But they look at you and say, oh, they're over there praising God for helping them with the littlest things. Not saying that he can't, right? But I'm making you understand that when we were doing police accountability, we went to Nick Handauer, who was a billionaire in this area. They didn't change the law. There's many billionaires up in this area. They didn't change the law, but my leadership did. Do you understand? So they can't look and minimize anything about the work that I've done, right? But when they look at you as a Christian and they see you over there thanking God for helping you change a tire, right? And you crying, and they looking, what kind of God is that? Do you understand? I just want your expectation of God to be bigger than what it is. I want you not to accept the dead God. You guys, I hear testimony service when I used to be growing up when I was 16, all these testimony services, right? The things that I would hear, the things that common people outside of the church go through and handle by themselves. And you need a crutch to go handle that when the average person has handled it by themselves. That's not the God that's alive. It is those things that are impossible, right? The condition that you find yourself in this country, it's going to take a God that can do the impossible for you to change the trajectory of what's going on in your lives. That other God has not fixed it, and he's not going to fix it because that God is dead. But the God that I serve, Yahweh, God of the remnant, God of the Israelite culture, right? And while I'm saying that, let me say this. There are people that have debates with the identity of idea of who they say they are, right? They're the quote unquote Jewish people in Israel and all this over there, and they claim they're the people and all that. And then there are people that debate that they are the people. You will never hear a remnant member debating anything. There's nobody that important enough for me to try to debate who the heck I am. The Most High will show who I am, right? Just like he's continued to show who I am. One thing for certain, you can bring your words to the table. I'll bring my work and I'll bring these receipts to the table. You know, that's what I'll do. I'm going to bring what God has done for me that you can go trace and you can go see. Do you understand? That's what I'm going to bring to the table. So all that other stuff don't mean nothing to me because you cannot deny it. I want you to have an expectation. And we're not mad at nobody, but you ain't gonna never hear no remnant out there trying to prove to anybody who they are. We know who we are. We know we are the people. And the Most High is gonna continue to reflect that we are the people. And I can guarantee you everybody will bow down. There's not a country, there's not a system, there's not a military, there's nobody that can do anything about it. Like I said, it's too late for that. You're going to see. Let me give you some future events that's going to happen that the Most High appeared to me and said. And we don't have any of this right now. I was living on 1st Street and Federal Way. I was 18. The Most High appeared to me and he said, one day you will buy banks and football will be like dog races to you. The reason he said that because when I was younger, I wanted to play football. It was something that I desired. But in the appearance, he said to me, one day you will buy banks and football will be like dog races, saying to me, I know what you desire, but I have something so big for you that's going to make what you desire like dog races. Right now, I'm saying that publicly, the same way I wrote in the book about the prophecy about 2019. Right? We're going to build a church that holds 25,000 people. These are things that I'm saying. I know that your Christian pastors like Benny Hinn and all them guys have prophesied stuff, and you got a whole bunch of Christian people prophesying, and ain't one thing came to pass. But you believe they the people. Ain't one thing came to pass, and you keep accepting it because you serve a dead God. That's why. That's enough for us. Let's go eat. It's the remnant around here. We are not playing. You hungry, remnant? You can turn that. Wait. Make sure you end it, and then we'll go back. Hold on. Dove, come get for Nunu. You want the blue cheese, Dove?